Hello. Alright, let me get my timer, because I only have 8 to 10 minutes.
Oh, that's a limit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty, thank you all for coming today. So today I'm going to be doing a persuasive speech, and I'd like to start out with a quote. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my. I hope we all know where that's from. I'm not seeing any blank stares, so Wizard of Oz, good. And now you're probably wondering, how at all does this tie into anything I'm going to talk about today? Well, I'm actually talking about lions, tigers, and bears. Perfect. So I'm talking about today the exotic animals that are being kept in captivity, and then there are instances where they're getting violent and coming out of cages and causing problems. And so today I'll be going over 3 points of this issue. The first is why this is an issue and some examples of how this is a problem. Second, I will be going over the cause of this problem, or at least the main cause of the problem. And third, I'll try to go over a few solution kind of concepts as far as a national level, a local level, and then as an individual, as you guys hear. So let's get right into it. Exotic animals pose a serious danger when they are put into captivity because they are not meant to be there. In essence, they are from the wild, they have large open spaces, and then you bring them, stick them in a cage in a little 12 foot by 12 foot area, and they have to stay there. This can turn on some instincts that we wouldn't really like to see in an aggressive animal that can kill you, such as, I need to get out of here and you're the only thing in my way. So, we've had instances such as in 2007, a tiger left a 17-year-old boy dead and 2 people severely injured after the tiger scaled a wall and jumped a moat. And this is by an article by Agadoni. This tiger became aggressive, and although it may have been by some outside force by the 17-year-old boy that antagonized him, the captivity was part of it, that he felt isolated. And if you're antagonizing something and you're pushing it into a corner, they're going to fight back because they have nowhere else to do the fight or flight kind of thing to. And there were other instances, such as in 2010, an orca dragged a senior SeaWorld trainer, Dawn Broncal, into the pool and forced her underwater, eventually killing her. This is from an article about the 5 big claims that Blackfish had about the SeaWorld industry, which I'll get into a little bit later. And although these may seem like a couple freak accidents, the Oceanic Preservation Society says dozens of people have been killed or nearly killed by captive marine animals over the past 40 years. And it's not just the marine animals, though. With the orcas, it's a very good example because of everything that's going on with SeaWorld. However, there was a instance in Zanesville, Ohio, where this man had almost an exotic pet kind of farm thing going on, but then he started to kind of lose it, which isn't good, and no one noticed it until the consequences happened. He actually went through and opened all of the cages and had starved these animals for 2 to 3 days beforehand, before he opened the cages, and let them loose just on this town. And then he shot himself afterwards, so he didn't have to deal with any of the consequences. The exotic animals, there were about 56 of them, and they were found roaming the rural area around Zanesville. The creatures had been freed on the reserve a few miles west of Zanesville after Terry Thompson, the insane man, apparently cut open their wire cages or opened the doors and then fatally shot himself. The incident sadly resulted in the death of all of the animals as well, because after they had been starved, they were high-risk individuals. So the police force in Zanesville had to put them down because they didn't have the tranquilizers or the time, since there were so many of these animals. And so this captivity concept is just getting put more and more into kind of the back burner. People aren't noticing it as much until these extreme events happen. And it's happening with all sorts of zoos and pens. And coming back to the SeaWorld thing, the HSUS, which is the Humane Society of Underwater Sea Creatures, says that orcas don't adapt well to being in captivity. They have a higher mortality rate than their free counterparts, which makes sense. they don't have the space to move when different scenarios come up and cause their environment to be changed, as in like a hurricane, or if food's running low, the orcas can't leave the park because the people feeding them have kept them there, obviously. And so when the food runs low from there, they're just swimming in circles and possibly becoming a little more agitated. There was a study done by Oxford University by 4 individuals, Butler, Whittingham, Quinn, and Creswell. They studied finches to try to see how this captivity concept was affecting the animals at a scientific level. And they found that after testing 118 finches by either keeping them in captivity and making them hungry, and then putting them into an isolated replication of a foraging kind of setup, they saw whether in the first 15 minutes the finches were foraging for food, or if they were just kind of walking around because they were waiting for someone to give them food. And they found that the results fell below 50% if the finch had been in captivity for more than 12 days prior to that trial, whereas the probability was over 75% if trials were completed within 2 days of capture. And this study helps kind of lead into my next point of the cause of these problems. The awareness is the main cause of all of these problems. With all the different incidences that I've been describing, people aren't aware until these incidents happen that there's a problem going on. And there's actually a really good quote by Nathaniel Brandon that the first step towards change is awareness. And it makes sense because people aren't going to do anything about a problem they don't know anything about. So there's no reason for them to take a stand or make any change. But when they're told about the problem and they see what's happening, such as coming back to the orcas, when Blackfish came out, it's a documentary about all the bad things that they were doing to their orcas in SeaWorld. There was an overwhelming negative feedback to the SeaWorld keeping these orcas. And so SeaWorld Entertainment decided that the current generation of orcas and its care would not be replaced. In essence, they're canceling the orca shows and everything like that. And this is because of the feedback they were getting from people, as well as, obviously, there's financial concerns that maybe this is a cheaper option if they go towards some sort of video thing or a simulation or whatever. So, after learning all this material, I would like to present a couple of solutions. We'll start at the national level. There are laws in place for the humane treatment of these animals and the exotic pets, and there are laws for what can come in, who can own certain things, but they can't be enforced because of how widespread the nation is. You have 2,000 miles from one end to the other trying to just govern every single animal that comes into this country. So this kind of leads into the local aspect, where I believe that if we create sort of a registrar of the people who own these exotic animals and where they live, so that anyone living in that community can be aware of what's going on, so that if something suspicious is happening around that house, or they just see this animal kind of roaming about, they understand that this person is supposed to be taking care of it, and they can report it to the authorities if they're not. Now, as far as the individual level, you guys here are doing actually exactly what you can. You're listening, becoming aware. And the only other thing that can really be done is if individuals can spread this awareness to others and increase how responsive everyone is to this problem. The other thing that individuals can do is they can donate to these humane societies and they can let other people take care of it. But if you really want to take care of it in your own hands, then raising awareness is the best thing you can do. So, in conclusion, exotic animals are not pets, they are wild animals and should be treated like so and left in the wild. However, if they are brought back for endangerment purposes or research, they need to be treated fairly. So I've been over some of the solutions of how we need to enforce the laws, possibly create a registrar at a local level, and how individuals can raise awareness. So I hope that you all will take this to heart and help out with the exotic animal problem. Thank you for coming, and I will take any questions at this time.
Hey,
Yes, Hannah.
so what's going on with SeaWorld?
SeaWorld, they had the orca shows where Shamu did his flips and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're not doing that anymore.
Wow.
Because there was such a negative outlook on what they were doing, because the orcas aren't happy and they have the fins that they fold over when they're in captivity, and they're in an enclosed space and it's not good for them, that people don't want to see these animals in pain anymore.
So where did Shamu go?
Well, he's been replaced a lot of times. That's just an orca.
Okay.
Oh, damn. Sorry.
Is there any indication as to what is actually changing inside, like the chemistry of the
As far as
brain
the
or-
chemistry
or-
aspect, I wasn't able to delve as deep into that in my research.
So they just basically they just found a linkage between
Basically, yeah,
captivity
they
and-
found a correlation between captive animals and this behavior, and they haven't. I don't know if they have. I haven't. As I said, I didn't do as much research on that point, but I'm sure there's something out there that I can take a look if you'd like. Yes.
So you did touch on the whole SeaWorld thing with the orcas, and if they're treating orcas cruelly in one aspect of their amusement park, do you know anything about other instances of animals being mistreated in their other programs?
As far as SeaWorld,
Yeah.
I don't. That's the most well-known one. I don't know of any other instances where it's been a problem, and I'm sure that they've been under strict scrutiny ever since the orca problem has come up. And I'm sure they're trying to work with it and make sure all of their animals are treated fairly, but they can't give up everything, otherwise they don't have a business. But I don't know of any scenario where the animals have actually been mistreated at SeaWorld.
So in your opinion, do you believe that do you think that only rehabilitation centers should exist for animals and not the zoos or any centers that are for mere human entertainment?
In my opinion, the rehabilitation centers, yes, they should be a thing. I also believe that if animals are going extinct or whatnot, that the centers that try to keep them going, and possibly even if it's a zoo that they have to go into just so they don't go extinct, I would support that. And I'm not against zoos or anything like that. I just think that the animals should be treated as wild animals and maybe given more space or whatnot. I see a lot of zoos have more expansive pens for their different animals, which I think is a lot better than like with the gorillas. I know in AP Bio, Mr. Tedeschi was talking about how they had the gorilla that was from the wild, but he was kept in this isolated concrete chamber. That is something we need to stop. If he has more of an open area, then that's more what I'm looking for, not necessarily just get rid of everything to do with captive animals. Yes.
So with regard to the correlation study, was it basically showing, was it involved with like the amount of space they had? Because I mean, oftentimes there's like wildlife reserves where they have expansive areas. So is it the confinement itself that seems to be causing the behavioral issues, or is it just being captive at all?
It was the confinement itself that they were specifically studying, because they put them into an actual like bird cage when they had the captive ones as opposed to the free ones. But they were focusing mainly on having that confined space and being fed every day, so that it kind of relates to the fact they're just getting used to this and they are losing their instincts to forage because they've been just given food. Yes.
Is keeping wild animals illegal, like, for citizens? Like, could I buy a panda and keep it and
No, you
get
cannot buy a
arrested?
panda because they're endangered.
I'm pretty sure
Um,
you have to have a license.
There
Yeah,
is
it's a special
there is a special license to have certain kinds of pets. There are pets that you can just have without a license, like dogs, cats, and fish, and that sort of thing. But when you get into the endangered species, you either need to be affiliated with a zoo that has the license, or you need to have the license itself. And if you're affiliated with the zoo, you don't get to keep the animal. You're dealing with them. Anything else?
Animal
Well, thank you again for coming, and have a good day.
Yay!